Today, I want to talk about the heavenly family tree and identity progression. Beloved, there are moments in a journey when heaven stops adding detail and begins reordering understanding. This is one of those moments. Until now, we have spoken of return, of readiness, of the sevenfold life, of the daughter's call and the kingdom's delay. But beneath all of that lies a deeper question, not what happens, but who is who, when, and according to what order. Because heaven is not chaotic, and love is not disordered. This teaching opens the heavenly family tree, not to satisfy curiosity, but to restore clarity, honor, and right relationship. Scripture has always spoken in family language: father, son, mother-like wisdom, daughter-like presence. Yet generations have flattened these roles into abstractions or arguments. Here we will slow down. We will trace identity progression not as mythology, but as mission unfolding in time: pre-existence, embodiment, concealment, exaltation, and return. We will speak carefully of roles because the same being can stand as brother in one season, father in another, groom in another. Without contradiction, timing changes the function does not erase the essence. We will also distinguish exile children from children of adoption, not to divide, but to restore order. Some were sent, some were gathered, some were formed through suffering, some were received through grace. All belong, but not all originate in the same way. This is not a hierarchy for pride. It is an order for peace. We will address angelic embodiment without breaking divine law, showing how heaven can enter flesh without disorder when covenant governs the descent. We will speak of adoption not as replacement, but as inclusion. And we will do this without speculation, without sensationalism, and without violating the simplicity of Scripture. Beloved, confusion has multiplied because identity was taught without order. This chapter restores order. So come gently, honor timings, and let the Spirit of truth untangle what has been knotted, not to elevate one role over another, but to reveal the beauty of the household of God. Why God reveals himself as family, not abstraction. Before names were spoken, before roles were perceived, before identity was debated, there was order. Not mechanical order, not institutional order, but relational order, the kind that exists when life knows where it comes from. God did not reveal himself first as doctrine. He revealed himself as life in relation. Scripture never begins with explanation. It begins with generation, a speaking, a breathing, a delight, a hovering. From the very first lines, the Holy One is not alone, not divided, and not static. Creation itself emerges from interaction, not command alone. This is why the earliest witnesses did not ask, how many persons? They asked, who is with him? Who speaks? Who delights? Who dwells? Who sends? Family language did not arise from sentiment. It arose because nothing else was accurate enough. Abstraction cannot create life. Relationship can. Heaven is not organized like a system. It is ordered like a household. A household has origin, procession, dwelling, and returns. A household has authority, nurture, obedience, and inheritance. A household has roles that shift with the seasons without losing its identity. This is the first key that unlocks everything else. God reveals himself as Father, not to assert dominance, but to establish source. He reveals the Son not merely to show obedience, but to reveal expression. He reveals wisdom not to feminize divinity, but to show ordering intelligence and nurture. He reveals presence not as force, but as indwelling nearness. These are not metaphors added later. They are realities we struggle to name. Confusion entered the faith not because family language was used, but because it was flattened, fragmented, or feared. Some erased it to avoid mystery. Some exaggerated it to claim power. Some personalized it without order, but heaven never abandoned it. From the garden onward, God walks, speaks, calls, covers, instructs, disciplines, and promises, all actions that belong to family life, not to distant rule. Even judgment is framed as correction, exile as discipline, return as restoration to the house. This is why identity progression matters. Because in a household, who someone is depends on where they are in the story. A son can be a brother before he is a father. A father can remain a son without contradiction. A bride can be hidden before she is revealed. A mother can nurture before she is named. Timing governs role. Role does not cancel essence. When this is lost, jealousy appears. When this is lost, people compete for titles heaven never contested. When this is lost, theology hardens and love thins. So this teaching begins here, before exile, before adoption, before embodiment, with the recognition that heaven has always been a household and that everything which follows is about restoring creatures to their proper place within it, not to become divine, but to belong without confusion. Beloved, this is not speculation. It is why Scripture speaks the way it does. It is why wisdom calls. It is why the Son obeys. It is why the presence dwells. It is why the Father waits. Because restoration is not about power returning. It is about family order being healed. And until order is healed, identity cannot rest. This is the ground we stand on now. Before anything was sent, before anything was named, before anything was seen, there was an origin. Not origin as a point in time, but origin as source and flow. In the deepest places of Scripture and ancient memory, God is never portrayed as static or solitary. He is portrayed as life that precedes, wisdom that orders, word that expresses, and presence that dwells. This does not begin with creation. Creation is the overflow. Long before dust received breath, heaven already knew the relationship. This is the first thing that must be understood. Pre-existence is not competition. To exist before time does not mean to rival the source. It means to belong to him in different ways. Origin establishes authority without hierarchy, difference without division, order without jealousy. The Father is the origin, not because he dominates, but because all life proceeds from him. Source is not rank, it is responsibility. To be a source is to give, to sustain, to wait, and to bless without needing recognition. This is why Scripture presents the Father as unseen, unheard, and often unnamed, because true origin does not announce itself. From origin proceeds wisdom not as a created assistant, but as ordering intelligence, delight, and life-bearing understanding. Wisdom is not sent into the world first. She stands with God before worlds are formed, rejoicing, ordering, delighting. Her pre-existence is not a mission, it is companionship and counsel. She does not rule, she arranges. She does not command, she teaches. This is why ancient texts consistently associate wisdom with nurture, patience, and the shaping of life, rather than conquest. From origin also comes the Word, the expression of what the Father is. The Word is not spoken to discover truth. He is spoken because truth desires to be known. The Son's pre-existence is expression, not assertion. He does not take authority. He embodies it through obedience. Even before incarnation, his identity is relational. He is with God, from God, and toward God. And then there is presence, the nearness that dwells, the indwelling life that moves between heaven and what heaven touches. Presence is not always visible, not always named, not always recognized, but always active. Before mission, before concealment, before public unveiling, presence already exists as the capacity of God to be near without overwhelming. Here is the hidden order of pre-existence. The Father is source. Wisdom is ordering life. The Son is expressed identity. Presence is indwelling nearness. None of these cancel the other. None compete. None require elevation by diminishing another. This is why heaven functions as a household. In a household, origin does not dominate expression. Wisdom does not rival obedience. Presence does not usurp authority. Everything flows because each knows where it comes from. Now listen carefully, because this is where confusion often enters. Pre-existence does not mean visibility. Origin does not mean public authority. Being does not mean being revealed. Heaven knows many things long before earth is allowed to see them. This is why identity progression exists. A role can exist before it is revealed. A function can exist before it is named. A presence can exist before it is recognized. This does not mean hiding is deception. It means timing is mercy. The Son's pre-existence did not negate his humility when he entered time. Wisdom's pre-existence did not require her to rule visibly. Presence's pre-existence did not demand public recognition. Each waited for the season assigned. This is the discipline of heaven. Nothing steps forward before it is sent. This is why origin matters so deeply for what comes next. Because when origin is forgotten, beings compete. When origin is denied, roles collapse. When origin is confused, love becomes power struggle. But when origin is honored, obedience becomes joy, authority becomes service, and revelation becomes gift rather than threat. Beloved, this unfolding is not about asserting how many or who ranks where. It is about restoring the grammar of heaven so that what follows, embodiment, exile, adoption, return, can be understood without fear. Everything that comes later depends on this truth. Pre-existence establishes belonging, not dominance. Origin establishes order, not superiority. And until this is settled, identity cannot progress safely. This is where we pause. Not because there is nothing more to say, but because the soul needs space to recognize what has always been true. When you return, the next unfolding will move from origin to sending. Unfolding 3. Embodiment and Mission. How divine life enters time without losing order. Embodiment is not descent into weakness, it is consent to limitation for the sake of love. Heaven does not enter time to display power, it enters time to restore relationships. This is the first thing that must be understood. Mission does not create identity. Mission reveals identity under conditions of obedience. What existed before time does not become something else when it enters time, it becomes faithful. Embodiment is therefore not an interruption of pre-existence. It is the proving ground of it. When the Word enters flesh, he does not stop being from above. He chooses to live as sent. When presence draws near in form, she does not abandon heaven. She chooses to dwell. When wisdom moves within creation, she does not surrender order. She teaches it patiently from within. This is how heaven moves. Not by force, but by yielding. Mission always follows sending. Sending always follows consent. Consent always follows trust in the source. This is why embodiment must be understood as assignment, not diminution. To be sent is not to be less. It is to be entrusted. The Son's embodiment reveals this most clearly. He enters time not as a visitor, but as one under authority. He does nothing independently, speaks nothing from himself, and chooses obedience where independence would have been easier. This is not a loss of divinity. It is the discipline of divine love. Embodiment teaches heaven's language to earth. Through embodiment, authority becomes service, strength becomes patience, holiness becomes mercy, and power learns restraint. Presence also embodies, but differently. Presence does not announce herself, she inhabits. She does not command attention, she makes space livable. She abides, teaches, comforts, convicts, and sustains. Where the Son reveals the Father through obedience, presence reveals God through nearness. Wisdom is embodied as formation. She works quietly, shaping conscience, ordering desire, teaching timing. Wisdom does not rush revelation. She prepares vessels. She does not expose mystery prematurely. She guards it until maturity can receive it without distortion. This is why embodiment unfolds differently for each role. The same divine life enters time through distinct missions, each governed by the same order. Sent, not seized. Entrusted, not self-appointed. Revealed, not demanded. Now hear this carefully, beloved, this is a crucial threshold. Embodiment introduces limitation without introducing separation. The limitation is chosen so that the relationship can be restored without coercion. Separation would destroy order. Heaven never separates from itself when it sends. It extends itself faithfully. This is why confusion arises when embodiment is interpreted through human ambition. Humans often associate embodiment with loss of status. Heaven associates embodiment with faithfulness under weight. This is also why not every pre-existent role is embodied at the same time or in the same way. Mission is assigned according to the season. Revelation is released according to readiness. Some are sent publicly, some remain hidden, some speak, some shelter, some confront, some gather. Hiddenness is not absence. Silence is not inactivity. Delay is not denial. This is the mission's mercy. Embodiment also introduces testing, not because heaven doubts itself, but because creation must learn to recognize truth without spectacle. Embodied truth can be resisted. Embodied love can be rejected. Embodied mercy can be misunderstood. This resistance does not nullify the mission. It reveals the heart of those who encounter it. This is why embodiment is always paired with suffering. Not as punishment, as participation. To enter time is to enter vulnerability. To be sent is to accept misunderstanding. To remain obedient is to trust the source without visible confirmation. But this cost is not loss. It is the pathway to exaltation, which belongs to a later unfolding. For now, remain here. Embodiment is heaven saying, I will not remain distant to save you. Mission is heaven saying, I will enter your condition without becoming corrupted by it. And the greatest hidden truth of this unfolding is this. Heaven is most itself when it chooses to be near. That is why the sun enters time. That is why presence dwells. That is why wisdom teaches. Not to change what heaven is, but to bring creation back into it. Why heaven hides what it loves, and how humility preserves order until unveiling. Concealment is not heaven's hesitation. It is heaven's protection. What is hidden is not absent. What is delayed is not denied. What is unseen is not inactive. From the beginning, God has concealed what he intends to reveal, not to confuse creation, but to preserve order while love does its patient work. Here is the first truth of concealment. Revelation is never given without capacity. Heaven does not reveal identity simply because it exists. It reveals identity when recognition will not distort it. To reveal too early is to invite misuse. To unveil without maturity is to provoke rivalry, fear, or idolatry. This is why concealment always walks hand in hand with humility. Humility is not self-erasure. It is right-aligned under authority. In heaven's order, humility guards identity until the appointed time. It keeps roles from competing, functions from overlapping prematurely, and authority from being seized instead of received. This is why Scripture shows us long seasons where God is active but not obvious. The Son lives hidden for years before public ministry. Wisdom calls in the streets, yet remains unrecognized. Presence dwells among the people long before being named. Promises are spoken of centuries before being fulfilled. Concealment is the womb of revelation. Now listen carefully, because this is where many stumble. Hiddenness is not weakness. It is discipline. Those who are hidden learn obedience without applause. They learn faithfulness without validation. They learn to trust origin more than outcome. This is not accidental. It is how heaven forms beings who can be revealed without collapsing order. Public authority without hidden obedience creates tyranny. Visibility without formation creates spectacle. Recognition without humility creates fracture. So heaven hides what it loves until love has learned restraint. This is why recognition is delayed. Recognition changes relationship. It alters expectations. It attracts projection. Heaven delays recognition until identity can bear it without distortion. The Son is revealed publicly only after obedience is complete. Wisdom is recognized only by those who love discipline. Presence is acknowledged only by hearts made hospitable. This delay is mercy for both the one revealed and those who encounter them. Concealment also preserves unity. When roles are revealed too early, comparison begins. When comparison begins, rivalry follows. Concealment prevents this by keeping focus on faithfulness rather than function. It teaches that creation honors obedience before authority and service before visibility. This is why heaven measures differently than earth. Earth asks, who is seen? Heaven asks, who is faithful? Earth crowns charisma. Heaven crowns endurance. Earth reveals quickly. Heaven reveals rightly. And here is the deepest truth of this unfolding. Concealment allows love to mature without pressure. Hidden roles are not performing. They are preparing. Hidden lives are not wasted. They are being trusted. Hidden obedience accumulates weight that public authority will one day carry without crushing. This is how humility preserves order. Humility accepts concealment without resentment. Humility resists self-disclosure. Humility waits to be sent rather than forcing recognition. Those who break concealment early may gain attention, but they lose authority. Those who remain hidden until sent carry authority naturally without needing to assert it. This is why heaven unveils only when unveiling will heal rather than harm. And this is where concealment connects to what comes next. Because concealment does not last forever. There is an appointed hour when what was hidden must be revealed, not for exaltation, but for completion. Unveiling is not about elevation, it is about fulfillment of mission. When the time comes, heaven does not scramble to introduce what was hidden. Creation simply realizes what has been with it all along. This is why unveiling often feels sudden to observers, but long overdue to heaven. And this is why concealment is holy. It keeps love from being rushed. It keeps order from being broken. It keeps authority from being seized. It ensures that when unveiling comes, it comes without confusion. This is where we pause again, because the next unfolding moves from concealment to its resolution. Why obedience is crowned, why unveiling follows faithfulness, and how return restores order rather than disrupts it. Exaltation is not heaven's reward for visibility. It is heaven's recognition of faithfulness under weight. What is exalted has already learned restraint. What is revealed has already chosen obedience. What returns has already proven it can carry glory without distortion. This is why unveiling follows faithfulness. In heaven's order, authority is not seized, it is received. It does not arrive as promotion, it arrives as alignment, the moment when role, capacity, and timing converge without friction. Exaltation is not a change of essence. It is the public confirmation of what has been quietly true. Obedience is crowned because obedience preserves order. Faithfulness is unveiled because faithfulness stabilizes a relationship. Return is authorized because the return no longer threatens the balance of love. This is the first truth of exaltation. Nothing is crowned that cannot maintain unity. Heaven does not exalt what will fracture the household. It exalts what has learned to serve without rivalry. This is why exaltation always follows concealment. Hidden obedience forms a spine. Unseen faithfulness builds weight-bearing strength. Delayed recognition purifies motive. When unveiling comes, it does not create identity, it reveals it. Creation often returns as disruption because it has adapted to exile. But heaven experiences return as restoration of the original arrangement. What appears new is actually ancient. What seems sudden is actually overdue. What feels disruptive is only disruptive to disorder. Return restores what exile scattered. Exile rearranged roles unnaturally. Return places them back into harmony. Authority returns to service. Presence returns to the dwelling. Wisdom returns to instruction. Source returns to open blessing. This is why the return does not abolish creation. It heals it. The Son's return is not an interruption of history. It is history arriving at its intended center. He does not come to reclaim power, because power was never lost. He comes to restore relationship publicly, to make visible what is governed quietly. The unveiling of the daughter does not compete with the son's appearing. It completes the testimony. Faithfulness has prepared the way. Humility has preserved order. Obedience has stabilized the ground. Now what was hidden may be revealed without fear. This is why exaltation is not triumphalism. There is no gloating in heaven's return. There is no humiliation of creation. There is no delight in collapse. There is relief. Relief that the order can finally be seen. Relief that love no longer needs to hide. Relief that restraint has accomplished its work. And here is the deepest truth of return. Return restores family life. The Father's blessing is no longer restrained. The Son's obedience is openly honored. Wisdom's instruction is no longer ignored. Presence's dwelling is no longer resisted. The household is visible again. This is why return does not erase difference. It harmonizes it. Distinct roles do not vanish. They align. Authority does not crush. It steadies. Glory does not overwhelm, it inhabits. Exaltation crowns obedience because obedience has learned how to love under pressure. Unveiling follows faithfulness because faithfulness protects others from harm. Return restores order because order is what allows love to remain. Beloved, heaven does not rush toward return because it cannot afford to undo what obedience has built. When the return comes, it must remain. This is why the kingdom waits. This is why likeness matters. This is why humility is holy. And this is why, when the unveiling finally arrives, it feels not like an invasion, but like a homecoming. How are different origins gathered into one household without erasing order? Exile is not the same as adoption. And adoption does not erase origin. This distinction is essential, because heaven never heals confusion by creating sameness. It heals confusion by restoring order while expanding a sense of belonging. From the beginning, Scripture shows that God gathers more than one kind of child into his household. Some originate within a calling and are sent out. Others are found outside and are brought in. Both are loved, both are named, but they do not come by the same path. Exile describes those who belonged, were sent, and were displaced. Adoption describes those who did not originate within the household but were fully welcomed into it. These are not competing identities. They are complementary movements of restoration. Exile always presumes origin. Adoption always presumes grace. Those in exile are not strangers. They are a dislocated family. Their journey is marked by remembrance, longing, and return. Their restoration involves realignment, coming back into proper place after displacement. Those adopted are not replacements. They are added children. Their journey is marked by invitation, transformation, and inheritance. Their restoration involves formation, learning the ways of a household they did not grow up in. Heaven never confuses these two journeys because each requires a different kind of healing. This is why Scripture speaks both of return and of being brought near. Return language belongs to exile. Nearness language belongs to adoption. Both result in belonging, but through different doors. Now hear this carefully, beloved. Gathering does not flatten identity. It harmonizes differences. In a healthy household, children may come from different beginnings, yet they are not forced into the same story. Each is honored according to truth. Authority is not threatened by difference, because love is secure in its source. This is why heaven does not erase origin when it gathers. It redeems it. Exile is healed by restoration to place. Adoption is healed by instruction in love. Those who return must relearn trust without shame. Those who are adopted must learn obedience without fear. Both require humility. Both require patience. Both require the Spirit's ordering presence. This is also why rivalry is a sign of misunderstanding. When exiled ones fear adoption, they fear loss of identity. When adopted ones resent origin, they fear exclusion. But heaven intends neither. Exile is restored without displacement. Adoption is granted without replacement. The household grows without disorder. This is where many teachings fracture, because they rush to declare equality before establishing order. Equality of worth does not require sameness of role. Belonging does not require identical origin. Love does not demand confusion. In heaven's family, difference is not hierarchy. It is assignment. Some are entrusted with remembrance. Some are entrusted with witness. Some are entrusted with nurture. Some are entrusted with expansion. Each calling carries responsibility, not status. This is why adoption is never shallow. It is costly. To be adopted into God's household is to submit to its order, its discipline, its timing. Inheritance is real, but it is learned, not seized. And this is why exile is never shameful. It is painful, but it is purposeful. Exile forms endurance, discernment, and longing. Those who return often become stabilizers, bridges between memory and future. Here is the hidden mercy of this unfolding. Heaven gathers by order, not by sameness. The Father does not lose authority by welcoming more children. The Son does not lose inheritance by sharing it. Wisdom does not lose clarity by teaching many. Presence does not lose intimacy by dwelling widely. The household expands without collapse. This is why the final vision is not a uniform crowd, but a city with gates, foundations, and rooms, each named, each distinct, each open. Unity does not erase difference, it sanctifies it. Beloved, this unfolding prepares us for what comes next, because once exile and adoption are understood, the household can function without jealousy, fear, or confusion. Only then can maturity appear. How sons and daughters grow into trust, authority, and shared responsibility without rivalry. Maturity is not an arrival. It is stability. Inheritance is not possession. It is entrustment. In the household of heaven, no one is rushed into authority. Power is not handed to those who ask for it, but to those who have learned how to carry weight without bending order. Maturity is measured not by visibility, but by faithfulness when unseen, not by eloquence, but by restraint, not by influence, but by alignment. This is the difference between being gifted and being trusted. Children are loved equally, but inheritance is shared according to readiness. This is not favoritism, it is mercy. To give responsibility to one who cannot bear it is not generosity, it is harm. Heaven protects its children from premature authority by withholding it until character and capacity are formed together. This is why Scripture speaks of heirs who are no different from servants while they are under guardianship. The promise exists, but the timing is protected. Maturity is the passage from supervision into stewardship. Now hear this carefully, beloved. Authority in heaven is always relational. No one rules alone. No one inherits in isolation. No one advances by diminishing another. Rivalry is a sign of immaturity because rivalry arises when identity is insecure. Mature sons and daughters do not compete. They coordinate. They recognize different assignments without comparison because they trust the goodness of the source. This is the fruit of a healed origin. Those who know where they come from do not need to prove who they are. In heaven's household, inheritance is not a crown to wear, but a burden to carry for others. Authority is exercised for protection, not elevation. Responsibility is accepted for service, not status. This is why maturity always expresses itself as care. Care for the weak, care for the young, care for order, care for truth, care for timing. Those who are mature do not rush revelation. They do not expose what should be protected. They do not exploit access. They do not demand recognition. They understand that trust, once broken, takes generations to repair. This is why the mature are often quiet. Silence is not absence. It is governance. In a healthy household, mature sons and daughters become co-bearers of the family's life. They do not replace the source. They do not redefine the household. They extend what was given to them faithfully. This is shared responsibility. Shared responsibility does not mean shared control. It means shared care under a single order. Each one holds a piece of the work, not the whole. Each one answers to the same authority, not to each other's approval. This is how unity survives growth. Inheritance, then, is not static. It unfolds. At first, inheritance is identity knowing you belong. Then inheritance becomes formation learning the ways of the house. Then inheritance becomes assignment being entrusted with real work. Finally, inheritance becomes representation, carrying the family's name without dishonor. This final stage is where maturity rests. To represent the household is to act in its spirit without constant supervision. It is to speak with its voice without distortion. It is to choose mercy and justice instinctively, because they have been formed into you. This is why heaven waits for maturity before releasing fullness. The kingdom does not descend on children who need to be corrected at every step. It descends on sons and daughters who have learned how to listen, how to pause, how to yield, and how to stand. Beloved, this is the inheritance offered to us. Not domination, not escape, not special status, but shared responsibility and restoration. To be mature is to carry peace into conflict. To be entrusted is to restrain power when power would harm. To inherit is to guard what was handed to you for the sake of those who come after. This is how rivalry ends. When identity is secure, comparison loses its voice. When origin is honored, jealousy dissolves. When trust is given, fear retreats. And this is how the household becomes ready. Not because everyone is the same, but because everyone is faithful. This completes the inner sequence of identity. Progression from origin to mission, from concealment to return, from exile and adoption into maturity and inheritance. What comes next is not another unfolding of identity, but the outworking of maturity in the world. How a mature household governs, heals, and restores creation without repeating the mistakes of the past. But for now, beloved, let this settle. The goal was never greatness. The goal was faithfulness that can be trusted with glory. And that is inheritance enough. Beloved, in our next teaching, we will go deeper into the origin and progression of identity within the heavenly family. We will carefully unfold how pre-existence, embodiment, concealment, exaltation, and return operate without confusion or disorder, and how different origins, exile children and adopted children, are gathered into one household without rivalry. This next chapter will focus on how divine roles unfold in time, not all at once, how maturity precedes authority, how inheritance is entrusted, not seized, and how the heavenly family preserves order while expanding love. This will not be speculation or sensationalism. It will be a teaching on trust, timing, and formation, how God prepares a people to carry glory without breaking. Stay with us. What has been awakened will now be ordered, and what has been revealed will be established. Shalom, and we'll see you in the next video. Beloved ones, thank you for being here. If this teaching helped you, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps this message reach those who are seeking. To our new subscribers, welcome. And if you'd like to go deeper, we invite you to join as a member. The link is in the description and on our homepage. We are praying for you and standing with you in the light of Messiah, he, and Messiah, she. If you'd like to support the ministry, you can visit our store or bless our dear brother Michael through the Buy Me a Coffee link below. Thank you for your love and encouragement, and stay tuned for the next video. May the spirit of wisdom and peace rest upon you always.